Thank you for joining me. If you're new to my classes, if you're not, you know the procedure. Usually when I have a larger class, we go to this format where you just hear me and you hear Karen. And then if you have a question, you can put it into the chat. And Karen will read that question to me and I will demonstrate whatever you're asking or go over or answer the question that you've asked, okay? Karen, I want to introduce Karen to my, over there. Karen Ness is my friend and a fellow calligrapher and wonderful artist. And she also acts as my moderator, or as I like to call her, my air traffic controller, because she is a pilot. She has her own plane and she's a wonderful pilot. I've flown with her before. So she is my air traffic controller for our sessions. So I cannot do this without her. She is an invaluable asset to me for this COVID teaching experience. So anyway, thank you all for joining me. Thanks to Karen for her help. I appreciate it very much. So we will get started. Thanks, Janet, for that little clap. I love those emojis. I always forget they're there because I turn this off during the time that I'm teaching. So, all right, I am going to enlarge and then I'm going to start sharing my tabletop with you. And here we go. I guess I need to, Karen, I'm getting.
You are right reading.
All right, yeah, but I can't see me, so hold on a minute. What is happening? I need to pin myself or spotlight. Oh, you've spotlighted me. Why didn't it show up?
Let me redo it.
Yeah, redo that again, please.
Stand by.
I should be seeing me.
Okay.
I see Janet Glessner. Hold on. You know what? That happens sometimes when I pin something. Hang on a minute. Let me just spotlight myself. All right, I'm going to cancel it and then I'm going to do it myself.
Very good.
Yeah, sometimes there. Okay. All right. So welcome everyone. It's right reading. Everybody can see this.
Yeah.
Make sure I focus. There we go. This is Funky Letters. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be a fun class. This is one of my favorites. I love this class. This is a COVID version or revised version of my Lively Letters class that I teach in person as a 2-day workshop that I've taught to many guilds across the US and Canada. So this has just been revised for the 6 hours that we're on Zoom together. So you're getting kind of a little preview of my Lively Letters class through this one. So thank you for joining me. And I'm going to quickly go through the handouts with you. You all have these, hopefully. This is my contact information. So anytime you need to contact me, you may use that information here. All right. And on page 2, just so you know, the live links in blue, those are live in your PDF that I sent you. So you can just link on those to these various places. For those that are in the US or Canada, these are links to American companies. I know for those of you who are in other countries that might not work, but at least you can see what it is. Now, these are tools that I didn't put on the, I put some of these on the supply list, but you do not need all of these tools in order to take this class. It's just, these are tools that I like to use to get my funky letters, okay? And we are gonna use some of them, but you know, not all of them. And just so you have a list of resources that you might want to investigate for yourself later. Inevitably, what somebody always asks, well, what was that tool she was using and where can I buy it? So that's why I put that in here, but it doesn't mean you have to have it for this class. Also, these are, yes?
And as who's using it, I put it in the chat.
Yes, and Karen will put it in the chat as well. These are some books I recommend for just getting ideas for lettering. You don't need these right now, obviously, for this class, but just if you want to look further into unusual letter forms, these are great resources, okay? This is my paper supplier. So somebody asked in the last class, and they are just located a little bit south and east, excuse me, of Indianapolis, Indiana. And they are a wonderful paper supplier. They ship flat and they ship paper well. It does not come creased or damaged. They're really excellent. And they have a lot of paper that calligraphers love to use. So that's where I buy my paper. And if you're in Canada and you need art supplies, this one was recommended to me by one of the people that took our class and said that they have a lot of calligraphy supplies at this store. So I just put that in there for the Canadians, because right now it's difficult for them to get things from the United States. All right. This page, I'll just very briefly go through it. It's just something for those of you who might be beginners. I know I have a lot of people who are calligraphers and you already know these terms, but I include this page because it is it's a really good resource, this website here. And you can read this at your leisure. I did get permission to use this information from John Bordley. He's the person who does a website called ilovetypography.com. And it's not just typography, meaning computerized fonts. He also is very much into hand lettering. And a lot of calligraphers that we know follow him. I went on to his site and I noticed I knew a lot of the names that were of people who are following him. So this is a really good resource if you want to read up on the history of letters and also about our Latin alphabet that we use in English. And then these are some terms about letters that I put in here just in case we have beginners who don't know what I'm talking about when I say certain things. So I want to just go through that. We're going to be talking about the X height or the body of the letter. And that is real quickly, the part that is on this area. So this is our baseline. This is the top of the body, this line right here, or the X height. The X height is actually literally the height of the letter X. It's a term that printers used in metal type because all points of the X touch the lines. And so they refer to this as the X height. So you have all 4 points of the X that touch. But I will use these interchangeably, body and X height. We have ascenders. Those are the parts that come above the top of the X height line. And then we have the descender, which goes below the baseline. This is our uppercase and our lowercase. We all know those. The little feet are called serifs. And then the space in here is white space or counter space, or I sometimes refer to it as the negative space. And negative space could be within a letter. It also could be outside of a letter. So when I think about letters, I'll think about the space around them. This is negative space as well. It's not a counter, but it is negative space. So you'll hear me referring to the counter space or the negative space, which I usually refer to around the letter, okay? And then the definitions are below. So you can look at that at your leisure. Then these exercises, we just very briefly touch on them in this class. And because we're not creating a full alphabet, although you will be creating some letters, but in my alphabet book class, we really go into this kind of stuff where we analyze letter forms to create a cohesive font. And what I mean by cohesive is a hand, not a font, a hand that looks like it belongs together. So if you were going to turn it into a computer version, it would be called a font. But these are the exercises from Edward Johnston. He was a calligrapher in the late, well, he would have been in late 1800s, early 1900s, I believe. And I got these from Mike Gold, who gave me permission. These are not Mike Gold's tips, they're Edward Johnston's, but Mike Gold used them in one of his classes. And these are exercises that help us analyze how hands are formed. And it also helps us make our own hands. So using these exercises, which we will talk about in just a bit, are the things that we can do to distort shapes to create our own new alphabets. So we can look at the shape of the letter O. The shape of the letter O tells us a lot, whether it's based on a round or circle, or whether it's an oval-based hand. And like italic would be this shape here, and round hand would be this shape here. So those are names of hands that calligraphers use. So we can tell a lot from the shape of the letter O. And then all of these other exercises are how we can tell how something was created, okay? But we can also use these exercises to do our own things and manipulate shapes to make other letters. And that's what we're going to do on page 5, all right? So what I said for you in the email I sent earlier, not this morning, but over the weekend or Friday, whenever you got my email, was what to have ready for today. And we're just going to start with a simple marker. You can use a Sharpie or a Crayola marker, or even one of these little fine line markers, or a pencil. I usually say don't use a pencil because I don't want you to erasing and getting all finicky right now. We're just going to really just brainstorm. That means we're going to get our ideas out on the page. We're going to create a couple different alphabets just to play with later. Okay, so exercise number 1 is what we're going to be focused on right now. Really nice. It's a fun exercise. And it's one I like to do in a lot of my classes. And if you've taken a couple of my classes, you already know it looks a little bit different than what I've done before. I changed it up just a little bit. But these are letters that we play with and we're going to create. And I always say that letters are just shapes, okay? They're made from lines and squares, circles.
Julie, can you please zoom out?
Oh, yeah, I have to zoom out, sorry.
Thank you.
I'll take this off here. They're made from lines, squares, circles, and triangles. And these are shapes that we can manipulate and play with. So in your handout, you see that I've taken a rectangle, which is just a different form of the square. It's an elongated square. Okay. And in it, I just drew a letter, and I'm going to do it in a different color. That looks like this. Okay, something like that. And I did a little crossbar right here. So I chose a rectangular type of letter. It's very tall. It's very narrow, maybe about 5/8 of an inch thick, maybe about 2.5 inches high, something like that. Okay, there's the height. This is my width, right? And then I also did this thing down here. I did a crossbar down at the bottom, right about here, which is about, if you were to do this like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 1/5 of the way down. If I were to create other letters, let's say we can go into the B, I would work with this same shape, just drawing it like this. And then looking at and analyzing the parts of this letter. So I would say, well, it has a very low crossbar down at the bottom 1/5. It has round, slightly rounded verticals, right? It has a rounded top instead of a pointed top like our traditional A. Our traditional A would look like this, right? A lowercase, or I mean an uppercase A. So we've rounded the verticals. I rounded the top of my points. I put my horizontal here. So those are my features I have to work with. So then what would my B look like? And in this case, because the weight of everything, if you want to look at the counter space, remember I said that the negative space within the letter is called the counter space. All right, this is my counter space. That means that my B, traditionally when we do a B like this. And we usually do a smaller bowl on the top and a bigger bowl on the bottom. All right. But in this case, most of my weight in my counter space is up at the top. So that means I would think about making my bowl bigger on the top. So I would do a kind of a rounded vertical like this. And then maybe come around like this with my bowl and come down to this point right here, because that's my 1/5 area, like my A. And I would do a bowl maybe like this. All right, so we'll just say my B could look like that. And then I would just go through the rest of the alphabet, which is what we're going to do now. You don't have to create a full alphabet, but what I want you to do, each person, is to come up with a shape, manipulate one of these shapes, and then let's see if you can make about, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 letters of the alphabet. And, we could take that oval or take that circle, and do something like this with it. Okay. And then if that were my shape, of course, this could be my A. And then I would have to figure out what the rest of my letters would look like. You know, maybe my C would do something like this, would be really flat. Okay. So your assignment now is to see if you can come up with a few more letters on your own. I will continue with my letters here. I've already done the A, B, and the C. And if you want to follow along with me, you can, or you can create your own. So what I'll do is move on to my C and the rest of my letters. So I'm just eyeballing this. I'm not measuring. I'm not using tracing paper, but you can. If you're in my alphabet book class, we get very, very technical about this exercise where we trace it. We make sure the shapes look the same. We're not worried about that right now. We're just playing. And you're just creating, yes?
There's already a question on your vertical rectangle. How would you tackle the M and the W?
The M and the W? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know that in our Roman proportions, if you know about Roman proportions, let me go grab that sheet real quick.
Stand by. She will be back.
I don't really get too finicky in this class, but Roman proportions, this is my little drawing of my proportions. The M and the W are the two widest and they come outside the square, okay? So if that's the case, we're in a rectangle right now. We could say that the M and the W could just come slightly outside of our rectangle. And we know that we've got, let's see my rules here. I'm gonna put this here like this. Okay, so, you know, my M, I'm gonna have rounded humps. And, you know, I'm gonna just do something maybe like this. That could be within that rectangle. Or because this is happening, because I have something happening at the top or the bottom 1/5, could I make that happen at the top 1/5? So that's what I would have to think about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or does it stop at the bottom 1/5? Maybe it's my point stops at the bottom 1/5 and this comes out just slightly. And maybe I do this. Stop there and don't come all the way down. And then do something like that. Go over that. Come just slightly outside of my box. And then do something like this. And then the W could come right up to this. Whoops, let's go outside that box a little bit. And do something like this. Or it could go all the way up to that. I could go all the way up to here and stop. So I could do this. And stop at my 1/5 up there. Come just slightly outside of that. Okay?
Thank you.
So that could be the way we handle the M and the W.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you know, what are some other letters that might be difficult with this one? You know, oh, we could do the S. How would we handle the S? Well, again, I think because I handled the bowl of the B, usually the S is done. So we have the bottom part, the bottom bowl of the S is usually bigger than the top bowl, than this one. So in this case, though, I would probably put the weight of the S at the top and come down. And how do I want to handle this curve? So I could do something like this. You know, and have the weight of that be down there. I mean, I'm sorry, weight of it be up here. And we've got this kind of thing happening on that B. So do I want to do this here? Or maybe follow that B? I'm just going backwards and just seeing what happens when I do this. You know, it could be something like this. I'm kind of looking at that B and how that B kind of lifted right here and just seeing if I can, what's that?
Can you shift left so we can see the S and B together?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You know, this is a weird turn right here, so I need to modify that. But again, I'm just using a marker because we're not getting super finicky here. We're just kind of playing right now. So I would modify that turn a little bit more and probably do something like this. Okay.
Julie, how would you do the O and the D?
The O and the U.
The O and the D.
D.
D and O, yes.
Okay. And the O is pretty easy, I guess. I'm just doing this like this. That would be my O. I'm going slightly outside the box with the O because curved letters usually go just, they extend slightly beyond, not quite as far as the M and the W. Those should go out a little bit more. And then the D.
Yes.
All right. So I'm doing this hand, but you could also be doing your own. Because we're going to use those letter forms that you create, you're going to try them with other tools later. So that's why I like when people just try their own. So we've got this rounded thing going. I think I just might round these corners just a bit on that D and do something like this. All right. Just because what I'm trying to do is keep this shape here, what I created with that B. And especially this turn right up here, try to mimic that right there. Okay.
Julie, can you please do, again, in your rectangle, a more Roman E and a more uncial E, please?
Roman E and an uncial E. This here. Yeah, so the Roman E, I would definitely do something, you know, where I'm thinking about rounding this, and then we know we have a rounded vertical on the A, so somehow I need to round that vertical on that E and just slightly do something like that, like I did on my D. And then here's my E, could do something like that. And then because my, that 1/5 thing, I would do the crossbar low down here. All right. And then that would be my Roman E. And then my uncial, based on this, let's see, do I want to keep
I'm
that
looking at
in?
the C in your handout on page 5 also.
Yeah, right. So looking at that C on page 5, we have this going on like this. This one I'm not touching over to here because I want the bottom one to extend beyond that. So that's the bottom one is where the width happens. This one's coming just shy of that. And then, you know, dropping my E bar down here maybe, okay? If that's the case, I'd probably shorten this tail up a little bit. Maybe it would stop right there.
Thank you very much. There's also a request for H and I.
Well, the I, nothing really is going to happen on the I. The I is just going to be a vertical. I wouldn't even curve, you know, trying to curve that vertical might create some problems, you know, doing something like this. I don't know. I mean, maybe you could, but I think I would just tend to keep that straight for the I, like that, the capital I.
And the H.
You know, yeah, and then the H is, all that's going to happen with the H is slight curved on the verticals, I think. Very slight curve, inner curve, I think. you know, something like that. And then we would do down there. Okay.
J.
Yeah. And then the J is one of those letters we have to decide, do we come out of the box with it? So here's where we need to make a decision on that, and then the Q. And what do we do with the Q? Because we have these little things that come out of them. So the J, well, let's do the Q first. Here's our O. Okay. And then, you know, we have room to keep that Q within the whole rectangle. Or, you know, we can extend it out and maybe just do something like that, like a round tail. Or you can do the tail at the bottom with a slight wave if you want, like this. Maybe doing something like that. Or containing, now if you want to contain it within the rectangle, then you won't do this. If you want to contain it within the rectangle, you could stop right there. Okay. So if we do the J completely contained within the rectangle, obviously we'll just do, I guess we could do something like this. You know, I would look at the bottom of either this E here, or, you know, we haven't done a U yet. But, you know, trying to mimic whatever the shape is of this, we would mimic that. Or you can come down and just do your J like this. And then you'd have to decide, well, where do I want to start my turn? Do I want it to start lower? And then just do that. This is something that we would get into like with more analysis later. But anyway, either one, I would either, you know, figure out something like this where it would mimic the turn that I already did here, or maybe the bottom of the O. You know, I would mimic the bottom of the O right there, or drop it down. All right.
Where would you cross the diagonals of the X?
Okay. Let's do. Make sure I'm accurate with my height here. Oh, I'm getting a little too wide with these. Oh, well. Okay, so the diagonal of the X, yeah, that's one of those where I would come down and the weight would occur. I would cross it down here. So we've got, if we want our diagonal to cross there, I've got two curved strokes. I want to keep those verticals curved. I could do something like this and just go like this and then do this. Or we could do an X like this. And then, I was thinking that we could turn this curve here. I don't know if that would look right though. Let's see. Would you? No, I don't know if that would be right. I was thinking we would do one curve this way, but then that doesn't curve. Maybe do that. And then, yeah, I don't know if I would do that. Have these two different curves doing that. This wave, so that I could go like out with the curve and then out this way, out and then back in. I don't know if I would do that or not. I think I would do it like this. Yeah, I think I would do it like that and keeping that at the bottom.
Thank you. Julie, can you shift your page? Okay, just right there for a second. Someone's looking at the eye. And
yeah,
then,
there's another one we could, I'm just thinking of that X. And could we do something like this? I don't know. That's also a possibility, maybe. Okay, what was the other one?
several questions. One, if you could shift your paper for a moment to show the eyes again. Okay, great. And now there's questions on the K, the U, and the V.
Might as well do the whole alphabet.
Right, in your students' preferential order.
Yes. All right. So the K. And then this is where, you know, I'd be looking at like the bottom of my, you know, maybe this turn here on the top of the A. What does the bottom of the U or the O look like? And do I want to mimic that down here? This would be like one side of the O. And I would do something like that, or the U. So this arc here, or this negative space, would be like similar to half of my O, or a little bit more than half of my O. And then I would do the kick out like this.
That certainly matches the X to the left.
To, yeah, this one, right.
Yeah.
So that's where we might want to think about, you know, a better treatment for the X might be something like that. And you'll see when we start to do other letters that we go, oh, wait, you know, there's a better way to do that one. I'll go back to that one. And that's what I like to solve that problem with this exercise. It's really fun. And then,
so then how do you
go ahead.
differentiate the U and the V, differentiating those?
Yeah, right. So the U is going to make the turn like the O down here. Okay. We'll just do something like that. Or actually, no, this has got to curve in just a bit. Sorry, forgot about that. That's got to curve in just a bit here. Like we did with the H, you know, we want to curve that in a little bit more. And then the V, again, we'll do this. And now I'm going to do, what I'm going to go back to is I'm going to go to this curve here, the top of that A, to get that V. So it's if I was flipping that A upside down. That'll give me the sharper turn for the V. Okay. So we want to make sure this one is the wider turn like this, and the V will do something like that then. Okay.
Thank you. And we are caught up in letter requests in the chat.
All right. So hopefully now what you've done is you've either gone through mine or you're doing your own. And then what I usually say is now we flip and we do the opposite. So whatever you have chosen to do, if you've chosen to do my alphabet, I chose a vertical and a very condensed shape. So a very vertical and very narrow shape. So what would be the opposite of that? So the opposite for me would be, and I also had rounded features on this alphabet. So maybe I do something that's a little bit more angular and wide. So what would be a good shape for me? I could do, oh, you know what I should show you? Let me show you this exercise. All right, I'm gonna show you this exercise because this one is, this is also a good, because sometimes I work in families to create a hand. So here's something that we go through in my alphabet book class, and I'm gonna show it to you real quick. And I won't go through all of the letters, but this one gets a little difficult. And I work in families this way. I wanna show you where this comes from real quick. Let me talk about this. And we're gonna do these later. We're gonna work on some of these for ourselves. But one of the, we in our Chicago Calligraphy Collective, we have study groups that meet throughout the city, all the different areas throughout the city. So different neighborhoods, 4 different neighborhoods have monthly study groups. And this was an exercise we did, pardon?
It's on page 6 of your handouts.
Page 6, thank you. And this was an exercise we did in our study group where each person was assigned, like, depending on how many people were in the group, 4 to 5 different letters. Some of us were assigned symbols and some numbers. And we created a whole bunch with different tools and all different ways of letters. And then we cut out our favorites. We pasted them onto a sheet of paper. We made copies, and then each person got a copy so that they had a complete alphabet book. And from that alphabet book, we can create other hands if you know these rules. And these are the rules that I use here in my classes. So, on how to analyze a letter form. So I chose this letter C. This was done with a broad edge tool, made the turn and then came out with the horizontal. So that's where I got my letter C from. So how would I create a whole alphabet from that? So I had to analyze. And this is where I do it in families. Here we went from A, B, C, and we just went through. But in this case, the other way I like to do things is I like to analyze what is happening via family. So here's my horizontal, and here is my, oops, it's a little bit stouter than that. And here is my vertical, which is a curve. That's not a really good one. Let me do this like this. Also, it doesn't, let me do this here. Comes out a little bit more like this. And it goes up like this. So what it's doing is it's creating this shape, and you see in the red, this kind of pie wedge, if you want to call it that. All right. This is where the letter C, we can see that it's doing this, and it's kicking out here. That's my letter. All right. So I can analyze that and see what's happening. What is happening with this thing? So we think that it was created with a broad edge tool that I turned. So we can say it could be a broad edge. That's how I created it. And then it has a horizontal, and which is like a single line. And then the negative space that's created, if I were to extend these lines out, is like this pie wedge shape, all right? Pie wedge shape. It's also very squat. It's a very squat letter form, so it's not very tall. And it is, what else? I think that's about it for now. And so the natural letter that I would go next now is into the E, because all I have to do is add, my middle stroke. So if this is my letter, I would just put my little E, right, my little stroke here. And then how would the G look? That would be my next letter.
Really, can you please shift left a little bit?
Yes, let me get this off here. And then we can make a decision on whether to, because this pie wedge goes this way and my angle goes this way, I can either go up with this stroke for the G, or I could continue it out like this if I wanted, or here, okay? So these are decisions that you would make based on like a family. So the family that matches the C would be the E and the G, all right? Then we would have to solve the problems of all the other letter forms. But the reason I showed you these two different ones is because they're completely different to each other. This one is a very condensed form, and it's vertical. And then this one is squat and more horizontal, all right? This one is also more angular. This is round. So these are two different ways of me making alphabets, where I'll do the opposite of what I did in the first one, just to see if I can change it up. I might even do something like where I showed you before, or maybe I do something like this. Say that's my shape that I want to work with. We could say that's like a distorted triangle. This is a triangle. I'm distorting this triangle by rounding one side, coming up like this, and coming down. And what can I get from that? I could get an A, obviously. And then I would just go through all of my letters and just see if I could make this shape. How would my B look? Maybe I might do something like that, okay? Because it would be this shape, like this. Or maybe the B does that, okay? So this is where I come up with all kinds of different funky letters. And this exercise, you can continue this forever. It's one of the exercises I use in most of my classes that I teach when I'm doing variations. and coming up with funky letters. So I use this exercise a lot. So I'm not going to go, pardon?
Well, there is a request for you just to walk through, because you have that E in your pie wedge, how you would do an F, how you would go about thinking that through.
Doing the F?
Yes, in your pie wedge.
Yeah.
Because
So actually, this could be
can you
that.
zoom out, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that could be also, that could be treated as the F. Yeah. Oh, here's one. This could be the F, and then this could be the E. So
Great.
we actually could go up with this. Yeah. So that could be the E, and that would be the F.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. Those are all problems that you have to solve if you're creating a hand, you know, a cohesive hand. So what I like to do just in this class is just play for a little bit, which you have been doing. But I want to show you some other exercises too that we can do just to distort letter forms. And you can do this with anything. So we're going to go on to exercise number 2. And this is different ways to make letters with one tool. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And I can't remember what I told you to have ready for today. Sorry. But if you have a broad edge tool nearby, you can use it right now. You don't have to. You can even do this with we can do this with markers. I don't care if you do it with a marker. For example, I'll just do this with a marker. If I were to do just, let's say, an italic B, and I'm not going to do thicks and thins. I'm going to just draw it like that. And this is my X height. And this is my ascender. And this is my descender area, okay? This next exercise is a different way to make a letter with one tool. So I could say my regular italic proportions. In an italic, we usually do about a 5, not always, but 5, 5, 5, let's just say, which is 5 nib widths high. And that means the width of whatever tool you're using is called the nib width, and it could be 5 nib widths high if you were doing this. I know there are beginners here that don't understand this. Don't worry. This is just your traditional proportions for italic. 5 width of your nib, 5 of them high, whatever size your nib is. Increasing your X height. So this is my X height, this is my ascender, this is my descender. We could increase the X height, but leave this one the same. So I'm going to leave this the same, but I'm going to go up higher with my X height. And you can just see how that changes the look of your letter now, all right? And then extend this out. And you can be doing this too. If you, right now, if you have, you know, like a parallel pen or any kind of broad edge nib, like a Speedball C, like this nib, you can do that right now too if you want with your nibs and your ink. But we don't have to because I don't think I told you to get that ready. That's okay. The next one is changing the height or the shape of the ascenders and or descenders. So you can go even higher with your ascender, but leave your X height the same. So we're going to go back to our traditional X height, or changing the shape of that ascender and doing this. Maybe you change the shape of it, okay? This is how you can get variations with traditional hands as well. Changing the slant. Instead of upright, I might do a really steep slant on this. Okay, do that. And then the branching. So in this hand, the branching, if you think of this letter as like the trunk, say that's the trunk of a tree, where the next stroke comes out is called branching. And that always changes the look of a letter depending on where we branch. So this is branching just slightly below the halfway point. If I change that branching and I do it higher, it changes the shape of this bowl. So let's look at the inner negative space or the counter space. You can see this has a more sharper point at the top. And then this starts to round because I've went higher with my branching. It rounds this arch right here. Okay. If I come down lower with my branching, and I branch from down here, oops, that got a little too wide. This arch now is pointier than this one. Also, you got to look at this space right in here compared to this space and this space. It changes the look, not just of the bowl, but also of the negative space that's between the trunk and the bowl. Okay. So these are the ways that we can take traditional letter forms and just play with them and then stretching them. So you can take that bowl of that letter and you can really stretch it and change the look. Now that's a really, really exaggerated stretch. But that's the exercise on number 2. So taking any kind of letter form and just doing these to them. And usually with the lowercase because now I'm doing ascenders and descenders. Okay. But let's just say we can apply it to, I know we just did caps, but, you know, if I have this letter, my letter A, all right, that was a cap. It doesn't have ascenders or descenders, but I could take and what are some of the rules I could change here? I could change the slant on this one. I can't change the shape of the ascenders and descenders because it doesn't have them, but I could change the shape of that, or the slant of it, sorry, the slant of it, you know, and do something like this if I want. I could also change, not the branching because it doesn't, I could stretch it, obviously. All right. Or if I created like a little lowercase alphabet, which we didn't do, but if I did, I could say, what if I wanted something to go along with this? And maybe my A does something like this, my lowercase a, and then my lowercase b. What would I do with that? Would this be my X height? I could do my B like this. Okay. And then maybe my ascender on my A could do something like this. I could change the bowl on that A and do that and stretch it. And my B could do, whoops, I could change the branch of it, just like I did. Well, that kind of looks like what I did on the italic. But you see what I'm saying? We can take any hand that we create, if it's got, especially if it has some lowercase letters in it, and just start playing with these rules. So this is a different way of changing things up. All right. Okay.
You know, your handout is not focused.
Yeah. I just kind of showing you where on the handout this is. You don't have to necessarily see mine if you have yours in front of you. But that's this exercise. So we can do this with the traditional letter forms in changing up to make them look different, just distorting them in a way is what we're doing, okay? All right, so now the next exercise is to try to create a new letter form by drawing only the negative space. So the negative space is the inside part, the counter space. So we know, I keep using A as an example. Maybe we do, let's see. Let's do the letter R.
Let's.
All right.
Can you zoom out, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So let's just say we're going to do we want to do a letter R like this, or maybe a little bit more like this? This would be more of our traditional Roman R. Okay. Okay. So my negative space is a bowl like this, but I also have this space to think about right here. So those are spaces right now that I can distort. And so what I like to do with that is I think about, well, what is that space? And I'm just gonna think about this space, this little shape right here. And how can I distort that right now? So I might just get a little bit more free form with it and maybe do something like that. Okay? So that's my first space. And I see that my vertical is kind of off like this. Now I have to deal with this space. All right? And then how would I want that to, you know, I might do something like, okay, I do something like that. Now, does that read as a letter R? Not necessarily right now. But what I would do is think about, you know, this. I might revise it where I do something like this. Okay. So now I've created these negative spaces, which are kind of cool. And now I can go ahead and add something to it if I want. I can make an alphabet completely just out of the negative space if I want. You know, if you had to read this in context with other letters, you might see that is an R if I had other letters around it. Okay, maybe not. We'll have to see. So what I would do now is I would just play with this and maybe go, you know, how can I add other things around it that it reads like the letter R? Would I add a line here? And I actually could do another negative space on the outside of this if I want. But let me do that again. Oops, that's so weird. I just have the freedom of playing with those spaces. That's what I like. I'm not really necessarily thinking, oh, it's got to look like an R right now. I can distort these shapes and see if I can eventually make it look that way. And I like that freedom of just being able to play. And then this could be my outside space. Could do something like this. Okay. So now I'm starting to get more into where, you know, this could read as an R if I have this going here. But maybe I don't need it. I won't know until I get into an alphabet if I actually need that. I might do something like, well, let's just take the, let's see. You know, can I do this? Well, obviously we know that totally could be an A, read within certain context. That could be an A. Just doing that as the negative space. But then I could also play with coming into that negative space like that. You know, does that read as an A? Well, it could. It could also read as a C, a weird C. A what?
Or a B.
Yeah, or a lowercase e or something like that. You know, so obviously this all has to be seen within context. But, you know, playing with spaces like this. Okay, so like if I were to do something like that, you know, that's the negative space of an inside of an E. All right. Or like this, you know, that's my negative space, the inside of a G. So I like to think about those spaces inside my letters. Let's see. And then just taking something like this. Would that read as a Z? Maybe not, but it might if I do. Wait, let's do this. Okay, so I would have this, this. Just drawing the spaces around it. So here I have this, this, and this as my Z, you know. And again, you don't see this as solid, but if it was solid, we might get to that. So that's another thing I like to play with. Just playing with my shapes and just seeing if I can get to a legible letter form, okay? So that could read as a Z in some cases. What I want to really show you very quickly, I just want to show you another example of this, and I'll zoom out just so we can see this exercise a little bit better. Is
You know,
on page, pardon?
Julie, that Arabic calligrapher, Wissam Shaukat,
Yeah.
it makes me think of how he takes those negative spaces of the Arabic
Yes.
and creates,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's another exercise. We took a workshop with this man from Dubai, and cutting up your letter forms, you know, so if you were to take, this works really well with paper. You know, if you took and you did a letter R, let's just say you did a letter R, and you took it and you cut it up into different pieces. I'm going to do it like this so you can see the pieces. And let's just say you cut it up and you did this. You can take those pieces and move them around, and you can manipulate them. You have three things that you can do with the letter R. This vertical, you have a bowl, and then you have this wedge, you know, as it kicks out. Moving those around, you know, if they were cut paper, gets you into all different other sorts of letter forms. It's a really cool exercise. And manipulating them to where they're still legible, but that they are kind of on the funky side. So I love thinking of the negative space because those negative spaces are so interesting inside letter forms and around them, okay? But here's what I want to show you real quick. On page, let's see, page 11.
Oh, I love this.
And this is where, this is a very good example of what I'm thinking about here. So this was done early on in the COVID quarantine. This is our walking path that's right near our house, bike path, walking path. This is the yellow strip that runs down the center of it that divides the lanes. And the paint was broken up after wintertime, after the heaving and hoeing of the asphalt. And it cracked, and I was finding letters in the cracks. So what I want to show you here is this. Look at the A and what's creating the A. So the A is the negative space. That's the asphalt that you see. But we've got the negative triangle here. We've got this distorted bottom part that kind of kicks out like this. And then we have this wedge here, this little piece, this piece, and that creates the A. Also, looking at the F. Here's the F created just with these four different types of rectangles and squares. And then where's another one that's negative? Oh, down here.
The X, the Y.
The X and the Y are both negative, and so is the T, all right? So this is what I mean by looking at the spaces within and moving those shapes around and then creating them to have the negative space. Now, in this case, it's the negative space is what's created the letter. Same here. Okay, and then a lot of these are other ones are positive, obviously. The rest of them are all the positive shapes are creating the letters. Okay,
I'm still waiting for the accordion book.
I know, I got to make one of those. So anyway, this is what I'm talking about. So specifically, the A, the F, the X, the Y, and the T are the negative spaces. All right. So think about that when you're, you know, trying to come up with some funky letters. All right, so next thing. Any questions?
We are caught up in the chat.
All right. All right, before we go on to exercise 4, these are some of the ones that I want to do tomorrow when we're doing all the different tools. So tomorrow we're going to work on 4, 5, and 6. But right now I want to do numbers 7 and 8, specifically because you can just do it with a marker right now, okay? And this is also in, pardon?
There's a question if this is to be done simultaneously as you work or as homework.
Oh, no, nothing is meant for homework, but you can do homework if you want. But you can also just follow along with me. But no, I don't want you to go on ahead to these exercises until tomorrow. So we're going to do exercises 4, 5, and 6 tomorrow, okay? But by all means, you can practice if you want. But let's just wait for me to demonstrate 4, 5, and 6. Right now, we're going to do exercises 7 and 8, all right? Let me get some different paper. Okay. So here's another thing that's really fun. using your non-dominant hand and just making, you can do squiggles if you want. You can also try to just make some letters. Maybe I'll go and make a few more of these squiggles. Hang on. Just scribble. Or you can try to make some letters if you want and just see what happens when you do them. Okay. Using your non-dominant hand. Then what I like to do is go back, and if you want, you could use tracing paper. I just usually try to look at this. And what I like to do is turn this around and just see if I can find something in here that looks interesting or looks remotely like a letter. So right here, I see this nice kind of B. All right. So I could do something like this and take that bowl and do something like that with it.
Directly below it in that same orientation is a very cool M.
You said now is a very cool where?
M.
What?
Directly left of the B.
Right here?
Yeah, that those are two bowls of the M. Yeah, with that vertical as your stem of the M. Yeah.
So coming like this?
No, come down from the point. The point that's pointed to the B. Up with
This
your
point.
finger.
Yeah. Oh, here.
Yeah. So that comes down, and then
Like
you go
that.
out, you go down, follow it down, that point from the B, follow it down.
Oh, this way?
Yeah, there you go. And then go up to the left, and that enters your M.
Oh, go up like that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So it's like this.
And then you go into your two bowls. Correct. Correct.
Okay, you could. Oh, that's kind of a funky.
Right?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm
I'm not sure I'm liking it, but okay.
So polite.
I know, I'm being very polite. That's very interesting. I should use that word. Although, usually we do like an M like this, maybe, in a cursive kind of thing. We could
Right.
do, we could do something where it's more like
Exactly.
there, So yeah, so that could be a feature of something. This little kind of entry stroke into a cursive hand could do something like that. I also see, where did I see this? Oh, this was really fun. This shape right here. And then if that were the Q, so this would be the shape like this. Whoops. Like that and round. And maybe if it was solid like this, that would be fun. And then your Q would do something like that, like a bell almost, or come in like this. Kind of like this shape. Be fun to do an alphabet with this shape right here, solid.
Definitely.
And your Q come out like that, maybe.
Definitely.
Be the bell font, the bell font. I'm not good at naming my hands. Karen helped me come up with the inside curve for one of mine. Also I love this right here. This is kind of a fun S shape right here. Right there. So it would look like this. It's a little wobbly, but I'm not going to do it wobbly. I'm just going to do this. And it could come out like that if you wanted. It's kind of fun. Okay, so this is another exercise I love to do. Like I would totally think that would be I would try something like this shape right here and create the rest of my alphabet. Now, these are my letters, and they're just okay. I don't really like them, but could I turn them upside down and around here? This could be a fun looking A right here. This. So we would do something like this like this. Let me do it with this one. This out. No, that. Come around like that maybe for an A. Could do that. I know it wasn't meant to be the A, but I put them all together and I got that shape out of it. So, ooh, that marker is strong. So that's another exercise that I like to do. I mean, this could be fun. It could look like something took a bite out of the bowl or something, you know, like this. And if this were the bowl, it could look like somebody just took a chunk out of it like that. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so I kind of do like that crisscross over there on that M. I like that one and I like that one. So that's what I love to do, is just play like that. When I get bored and I feel like I have to come up with something new, I just let my hand go, which leads us to our next exercise. Closing your eyes. If you've ever done any kind of line contour drawing or, contour drawing in art classes, where you're looking at, you can't look at your paper and you have to look at something, you have to draw it. This is kind of like that type of an exercise, but I'm closing my eyes and I'm just letting my hand move around the page. Like I'm taking my marker, my pen for a walk. And tell me if I'm going off, because I do have my eyes closed. I literally do.
So far, so good.
And then you can make your swoops if you want. This is my swooping moves. Now I'm not watching what my hand is doing. I'm letting it just go.
You're staying perfectly on the screen.
Cool. All right. So that is blind. Nothing, I couldn't see it. So now I would go in again and look and just see, is there anything I can find? Like right now, how fun is this? I'm going to color, well, do I want to color that in for you? No, I'm going to trace it. This is one that just leapt out at me. Liking this. I like this B right there. Or that could be an R if you wanted to call it an R. No, I would call that a B. I like that shape. I like that a lot. If I were to revise that, I would probably make it more like this. Just so, oh, no, like that. You know, that would be my shape. Something like that, maybe, if I were to revise it. Sometimes I look at the opposite. I look at the back side. Now that my marker bled through, I can see, you know, here's an S, if you want to call that, and there could be, this could be an L with a loop and coming through. Here's an M, an interesting M. Here's a lowercase e. Oh, here's a fun P right here. This one. Okay. And you know, I could actually go in and maybe not make that a solid one. I could think, well, how could I make that with another tool? Maybe something like this. And then I could add my thicknesses here. That could look kind of nice. And then you could decide, well, do I want to make it closed? Or would I make that like a normal, would I make that open? I actually kind of like that one. You know, I could do something like this. And then come down to this point like that. And then keep this being, just make it open. Whoops, I lost that curve. And then come up. So you can make the decision now whether you want to keep it closed or open, and maybe extend one just beyond like that. So again, there's another exercise on how you can find things. All right. Both of them are just scribbling, basically scribbling. But when I close my eyes, I have a tendency, even, you know, when I'm doing my left hand, I'm watching what I'm doing. So I'm kind of making decisions as I'm doing it. But when I close my eyes, I'm not making any decisions. I'm just letting it go. You know, I'm letting my hand roam. So then you might find something even more creative. Okay, where you're not restricted. I actually like those two P's. I like that. I might do something with that. That and my Q. I came up with some really fun letters. I want to come do something with that Q and with my P. All right.
Very nice.
So have fun with that. That's a cool one. Okay. So now, let's see here. We can go back. And if you want, I think I did say in the, when I sent out the first email, maybe have another tool ready. I have something here. I'm going to use this Coit pen. And it is a vintage pen that looks, it acts more like a monoline tool. And let me get some ink ready here. I'm just going to use some Sumi ink with it. Why is that not coming out? I think my Sumi thing is clogged. Hang on a minute. All right. So I am going to, now I'm going to use some, well, this is what I want to play with. Taking one of those letters that I just worked with and just seeing what I can do with a different tool, okay? So I'm using a pointed tool here, and I'm gonna go back to that P. And I'm gonna do something like this. So this is an easy tool to use because it's very similar to what I just did with the, oh, this is my bleeding paper. Hold on a minute. Forgot. I have two different types of paper here that I ordered, and one of them bleeds. Let me go back to this one. Sorry about that. One more time. Okay. So here's my P. Come out with that. And then no, I don't know if I like that. Thickening that right there. Because that one actually starts to look more like an R when I start to play with that. I don't know if I like that for the P. You need to keep that a little bit thinner. But what I want you to see is once you make those letters with the marker, go back and see if you can do something now with a different tool and some ink. And then I'm going to extend this one just a bit beyond there, like that. And then do this. And I mean, of course, I can do it with this one because it's more of a monoline tool. Widen it this way. But once I switch to like a different tool, let's see what I can do with it. All right, so there's the P done with this tool. Okay, you're getting a shine there. What if I switch over to my Brody tool? So this is the hand Rhythmic pen. It's in your handouts on that page 2. This is Brody Neuenschwander's ruling pen that I like to use. And then I can get a thin line with it up on the tip, thin, whoops. I can get a medium stroke on the side and then a wide stroke like this on the other side. It's got 3 different sides to use. It's a really versatile pen. What if I wanted to try this? Would I draw it with the tip, or could I do this on its side and then kind of come up like this? I'm getting a little bit more of an organic line, or actually I need to start like this and then rock onto the side a little bit to get my wide. That gives me a really broken up weird line, but that might be fun. Come up on the tip and then see if I can rock over on its side and do this. Come around. Okay, so that's a weird kind of more organic way of doing this. And if I wanted to, I could go back and refine it, but I actually kind of like what happened here. And I like what's happening here. And maybe this is a new, different way of making this letter, because I just made it with a weird tool and it gave me these weird edges, which I could clean up like this if I wanted. Or just leave them alone. So that gave me a whole different look to that letter just because of the way I was twisting this pen. You know, I could even get more. I'm holding it in, I could hold it like this. And then rock over here. Oops, going the wrong way. I got to do this, I think. There. That's better. Do that. Come around. Rock on the side. Go back on the tip and come down. Okay. So now I'm getting more variety in my line. And in this case, I would probably just leave that one alone. All right. If I have, let's see what else I can try. If you have one of the Cola pens, we can try this letter with the Cola pen. Same thing, kind of rocking on its side, then coming up onto the tip to get that move. Up onto the tip, rocking it on its side, coming around. You know, we could do something like that. So when we do those exercises tomorrow with the different tools, creating different letters with different tools, these are the kinds of things we're going to be thinking about. So you can take some of the letters from, you can take some of your shapes that you used, that you've discovered today from your scribbling. You can take some of the letters you did when you created your own hands at the beginning. And if you wanted to try that more for homework, creating your own alphabet, and then trying them with different tools, trying to create them with different tools. I'm going to look over back at this. Let's see here. I'm going to go back to the first letters I made. Where were they?
So Julie, before you transition to a new letter, there's a question about the paper. About
Yeah.
the paper you're using, which bleeds, which doesn't bleed.
Yeah, so when I ordered some of that Pakhan sulfite paper that I put in your handouts, I like that for practice paper. They mistakenly sent me a ream of lightweight, and I had ordered the medium weight. And the lightweight, I thought, oh well, it's just lighter in weight. It's not going to be any different in the texture. It bleeds. The medium weight does not. When I use medium weight, it does not bleed with ink. So that's what I like to use for practice. So the lightweight bleeds, the medium weight does not. And heavyweight is great it doesn't bleed either, but it's very heavy and the ream is really thick. It's like a really thick ream. So medium and heavyweight are my choices. But the heavyweight's more expensive. They just ran out of medium weight during COVID and I haven't been able to find it. So I have heavyweight right now and I have lightweight. And the lightweight works great with the markers. They don't bleed, but when I go to the ink, it bleeds. Heavyweight does not. Okay.
Thank you very much.
But you can use Strathmore drawing papers for practice. It doesn't have to be the Pacon. All right. So, all right, let me go back to creating letters with a different tool. All right. So let's go back to my earlier letters, which were we can do those. Yeah, I'd like to try that Q, that really fun Q that I came up with. Keep the Q here, and I'm going to try my A. Now, my A with my favorite tool, my Brody tool, that's pretty easy. Just using, you know. Now, the Brody tool is really fun because I get these nice splatters. When you do a push stroke, pushing that nib up like that, you get these nice broken up lines. If you do a pull stroke, you get some nice fun edges. But I really like the splatters that I get with this. You know, so I could do this A, you know, pushing up like that if I want, and getting, creates a whole different look to that. Also a different move. You know, I made this just slightly different where I came up, rounded this, and this is still slightly rounded, but it's a little bit more vertical. And I'm getting all those nice splatters with it. You know, if I try that B, you know, I could do a B like this kind of thing. Or like that. Now I'm doing very, very fast, very free form. You know, I could do it slower, but then I won't get all the splatters. But it's still a nice look. I get a little bit of a slight thick and thin there. Okay. So it's really fun to try different tools once you create your fun letters. And what else would I try? Oh, you know, you might want to try like this is the Tim's pen. Doing this a little bit slower, you might get something like that, where there's a lot of variety in the line. Coming up with this, and maybe, oops. Okay, gives you nice variety, thick and thin in your line. All right, and then I'm going to try my Q. Let's try the Q with the Cola pen. And I don't know which way to make that Q. Maybe I go like this, up, down, and draw it like that. Do something like that. See what it looks like with Brody's pen.
I really like that Q very much.
I do too. I think I want to do something with that. I need to put some padding underneath me here. Let's see.
Julie, can you please talk about padding with the various tools that you're using?
Pardon?
Can you please talk about padding under your paper for the various tools that you are using?
So anytime, of course, that we use a metal tool, you want to make sure you have padding so you're not on a hard surface. The metal tools don't like hard surfaces, though you won't get the proper ink flow. So I always put some padding underneath, just so that metal tool doesn't resist.
Thank you.
Something like that. You're welcome. I'm going to turn this because I want to come down with this stroke like that. So I was able to do that stroke a little bit freer just because I turned my paper a certain way. You know, that's really fun. Now this is how you're going to create your letters for tomorrow, where you're going to try to make 10 different letters in different ways with different tools. Right now I'm doing the same letter with different tools, but you're going to be making multiple different letters with different tools. But we're moving into that exercise. So what if I did this with let's try a broad edge tool and see what it looks like when I do a broad edge. Let me find my broad edge here. Here's one. Do I have to make it that slow? I don't know. I could go faster. That's an interesting look. I'm not sure I like it, but you know, change the angle of this and maybe manipulate it. Not my forte for manipulating nibs. That's not my thing. But you could do something like that. And then come like this. Do something like that. I don't know. For that cue. So we actually would be reading more like that. I've got
Right,
it
the
on.
way that it turned was like it was almost
Yeah,
like
it's because I couldn't make the move. I needed to turn my paper. So this is what it would look like. Okay. My favorite one, of course, is this one, but that's because I'm partial to that Brody tool. Okay. So that is a promising alphabet. I think I'll try that alphabet at some point. All right. Where are we at for time?
we have half an hour.
12:30. Okay. So are there any questions right now?
We are caught up in the chat.
All right. Very cool. Now, some of the things that you probably don't have, and I want to just show you this. Number 10, exercise number 10. This is something I really like to play with, some found objects. So I have things like seashells and broom bristles. And if any of you have ever taken a Ukimi class, you've probably made some unusual tools. Let me just show you the broom bristle pen real quick. And this is in your handouts, and you can make one for tomorrow. So if you haven't made one yet, you still have time. You can do this tomorrow and use this to make some of your letters. But I really like it because it splatters. You know, using it as to make an O is really fun. Here's my A that I did earlier with my broom bristle. But just playing with it. Here's my P from earlier. Might do something like this with it. Okay. But I have these seashells. Oh, let me get them for you. I forgot to put them out. Okay. So I have these seashells that I found, and if you have some around, or they don't have to be exactly like this, but this is a sliced seashell. I found them in Florida one year when I was there. And they're usually for crafts, like for jewelry, like making necklaces. But I found that they really make some really fun lines.
That holds the ink so well.
It does. This creates a natural reservoir right in here to hold the ink. This is really particularly fun if you're going to be doing any kind of demonstrations for kids. They love to hold seashells. Let me try my P in this. I mean, who doesn't want to make a letter with a seashell? Right? Let's try the P a little bit. You know, it could see how that, and then it does break up. I could go back in and touch it up, but you will get some like almost dry brush effect with it, you know. So anyway, that's one of the things I like to try. And then I have, you know, various tools like this, taking some grasses or reeds. And I like to play with these as well. Oh, this is my, hold on a minute. This is my paper that bleeds. So stuff like this. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Okay. Just trying things that you might have outside or around your house. And I'm showing you this so you can get ready for tomorrow. You don't have to have these now. But this was, somebody gave this to me in a workshop, a little seed pod. I'm not quite sure what seed it is, but I like to use it for, yeah, that's better. Ooh. There's a nice letter there. Nice. This one works like a nice brush. Don't know what this is. This is a Virginia Creeper seed pod. And it's a nice monoline tool. Like that.
By the way, we haven't answered
Hawaii.
what it's from. That it's from Hawaii, from I don't know how to pronounce it, How Tree.
Oh, how cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
You know, I find these on our sidewalks here. I can't remember what tree this is. Just to make marks. That could be an O. That's kind of funny. It just has two little, yeah, that's what I'm getting with that one. And twigs.
Julie, Janet wrote that those are used by Hawaiians to paint the bark cloth.
Oh, how cool is that?
Very.
This is kind of fun. This is breaking up a little bit. This is just a stick that I found. And here's another one of those from Hawaii, I guess. Oh, I have this one, which is a very monoline. This is a wisteria pod.
And someone suggested that the other pod was possibly a lotus pod.
Oh, okay.
Locust pod.
Locust.
Yeah.
You know, this is really, this one, I can get a lot of ink on it and make marks. And it gets more of a dry, like it starts to dry out a little bit, and then I can get a dry brush kind of look with it like that. Okay. These are fun. I can either use this end or this end. Like that. Or I can use this more of a broom bristle type of look. It's a little tighter. Okay.
Alyssa Barr says that lily stems work very well and they last a long time.
Lily stems. Ooh, good to know. Thank you. So I love using found objects. This is a reed. Like if anybody plays a wind instrument, someone gave me one of these, and they're great for broad edge. And then they eventually start to kind of dry out and do this sort of thing. Balsa wood at the you know, like Michael's in the section where all the wood is. You know, this one's really soft, so this one's bending a little bit too much. But then you can get that kind of a look where it fades out. I know a lot of you have tried these things, and I just want to show these, especially for beginners, because it's really fun to try these crazy different tools. I have one piece of balsa wood that I got. This one is really nice. And it's a piece, it's about a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch thick. It's in the section where you buy the balsa wood. I can't dip it into my cup. Hold on a minute, it's a little too wide for my cup. But I like making big, bold marks with it. Okay. So when you're doing, pardon?
You have that balsa wood handle that I made you?
Do I have the balsa wood handle?
Yeah.
Let me see.
No, you don't have to get it now. I'm just curious.
I might. Yeah, it's over here. You know what? I can't find it.
Don't worry about it.
I'm sure it's here, but I can't. And then there's these, we've made these before, the combs. You use a comb. And this one,
Can you zoom out?
you have a cool piece that you did with one of these.
Yeah.
I do it like this. Up and down like this. Splatters. Instead of this way. It doesn't work very well like this.
No.
It doesn't work well at all like that. So this one is just more upright with the splatters like that. I love that. So those are some other things you can try, different tools, making some marks with them, just practice making marks. And then tomorrow we can use those tools to make letters. So tomorrow what you should have ready would be some inks like either Sumi or Walnut, have different tools available. And you can still work on your practice paper as long as it takes ink. But you can also try some other papers too. I said just if you have a bunch of scraps of good paper, you can bring some of that out as well just to see what they do. Also, the tool that I didn't demonstrate yet is the fine line applicator. And I have two different versions of it. I have this one. Let's see how that Q looks in the fine line applicator. Fun, could be fun. So this is in your, I think I put this in the supply list. Don't worry if you don't have one. It's just another tool that I like to try to show people. The ink that I have inside of it is Sumi, and it's really fun, but you notice as you move, you have to move fast. Otherwise you get these pauses where wherever you pause, you get a big blob, which you can use to your advantage or not, you know. So you want to actually move quite quickly with these tools. This is the version that I like, and I like to hold it horizontal. I mean, parallel to my paper in my hand. And then I just write like this with it. I had just recently bought the upright version, which they've come out with. Hang on, I have to put this cap back on, otherwise it will clog up.
Julie, can you show putting the cap on in front of the camera so people see that?
Yeah, but no, please bear with me because my eyes are over 50 years old now, and
right, and you're not on. There you go. Thank you. Oh,
yeah, right
there you go. Thank you.
So you have to get that wire back inside here, which looks like I need 2 pairs of glasses to do it now.
I've seen you work with 2 pairs of glasses.
Ah, I can't even see this now. There it goes. Okay. You can fill this with anything. You can fill these with watercolor. Well, I wouldn't do thin watercolors with this. I would do gouache with this. You can also use golden high flow acrylics. You can use Sumi ink. I don't water it down or anything like that. I also have white in my fine line applicator, and that's Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. And what I usually do, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. And in this, what you're going to talk about the bleed proof white, there's a question about the consistency of the fluid for the content.
Let me show you that. Real quick, I need to get a cup here. So what I usually do with my bleed proof white is I take some of my bleed proof from the jar and I pour it in. This is pretty liquid. I probably have to stir this around a little more. And I put about, I don't know, maybe about 1/4 of the way up on one of these little cups. And then I add about the same, then maybe just a little bit less of water, okay? A little bit less than the same. So it's not 1-to-1, it's a little bit less. And then I mix that around in this cup, pour it into the bottle. You know, I take this off, pour it in here. And then I add, actually I'll probably do about 1/2 a cup. Now I use a lot of bleed proof white, so I don't mind putting maybe about even 1/2 into here. And then just back off on the water right away. Don't put as much water. Pour it into here and then test it and see if it comes out okay. Let me get a piece of black paper to show you how this should flow. And then I add the water as I need to, okay? So I don't add the water right away because what we don't want to do, we don't want it to come out too thin. And let me get a sheet of black here. And I'll show more of this tomorrow. We'll work with these tomorrow, but that's a little bit too thin. You know what, I forgot, I watered this down quite a bit. That's really thin. I need to get one that's nice. Let's see here. I watered that down because I was trying something with it, and that's not the one I want to use. This one. Oops, this one needs to be, hold on a minute. There we go. So it's a nice consistency. Okay, it flows really well. Yeah, I do use distilled water, yes. So this is the Dr. Martens Bleed Proof White. And you just, what I want you to do is just make sure you test first before you add water, more water. So you want to use about, here's what I'm going to show you. I fill up about this much of that cup, like that, and then maybe add water to about this point. And then I pour it into the bottle, and then I see how it flows, and then I add more water. You will need to add more water. I'd rather have it too thick right off the bat than too thin, because you can always add more water. It's hard to take it away. You can't take it away. Okay?
Wild Woman, there's two questions here about the fine liner. One is if you ever use acrylic ink.
Yeah, so not acrylic ink. I haven't put acrylic ink in these. I've put the Golden High Flow acrylics in them. I don't have one right now available. That one, that tip finally wore out.
Although the Golden High Flow acrylics that are in those small little containers, there's the high flow, the fine liner tip fits right on that bottle.
Yeah, so you can purchase these tips, this cap and this tip. You can purchase this just alone, and then they screw right onto the fine line, or onto the high flow acrylic small bottles.
There's another.
What?
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go.
Oh, I was just going to show you this version. I'm getting used to this version. I still tend to like this other one. I don't like writing straight up and down with this. Now this has Sumi in it. And I noticed that every now and then, if it's not completely full, it's like it gets air bubbles, and then my line breaks up. And it's not doing it now, but it was doing it the other day when I was practicing with this. Now, you can write a little bit more upright with this version instead of holding it in the palm of your hand. So, where's my P? Here's my P. Oh, see, that's what was happening. It was like it was breaking up. So I'm not a real fan of this one. I am squeezing it just to keep that flowing a little bit. I still have to work with this one. I just started using it, and I'm not sure I really like it. I like the one that lays flat in my hand. But this is an option, okay? Now, they come in the blue tip, which the gauge is a little bit smaller, and then they come in yellow. That gauge is a lot wider wire, so you need a thicker fluid to go through that one, all right? But the blue seems to work really well for the Sumi and for the way I do the white. That's my favorite, the blue.
And that was the question, the blue and the yellow tip, so thank you.
Yep, okay. All right, so let's see where we're at here.
We have 15 minutes and we are caught up in the chat.
All right. Very good. Let's see where my handouts are here. All right. So we've gone through finding the objects. We've gone through, using a tool in a non-traditional way. So if you have a broad edge tool, for example, traditionally, we would hold a broad edge tool depending on what hand we're doing, either at a 45-degree angle, and we'd get an A like this, right? Okay, that would be our italic A, or a version of italic. But what happens if we, if we hold it in a non-traditional way? How can I make an A? I could maybe do something like this, holding it this way, coming up like this, and like this, and maybe I'm holding it at a 0-degree angle, okay? Maybe doing an A like that. The Ben-Shahn letters, people do the Ben-Shahn letters, like traditionally we would do a vertical on the T would be the thick, this would be the thick, and this would be the thin. What if we did the thick this way and the thin this way, Or traditionally we would do an E like this, or actually like this. And then you would do this, this, and this. So what if you did That's a really ugly E. What if you did this and then came across with your heavy here, and maybe we do our thin here and heavy again that way. All right. So using it in a non-traditional way, just at a different angle, usually 0 or at 90, instead of at a 30 or a 45-degree angle. So just trying things. This is 90. This is 90 going this way. This is 0, 0. Okay. Trying stuff like that. Come down like this, maybe go across like this, and like that. So just playing with the tools in a different way. You know, you can rock it and see if you can do something with that. I don't know if you could do, maybe that could be the letter P. Okay. Maybe that could be your R. So just playing with the tools in different ways creates, you know, unusual letter forms. And this is when you, tomorrow, when you're making the 10 different letters for your pages using different tools, this is what we can think about. Just playing with the tools in different ways, okay? So I want you to be thinking about that tonight, maybe doing a little practice, and then tomorrow we're going to try to make we're going to do these exercises 4, 5, and 6 together, using all of the tools that we have at our disposal, trying these different things, okay? Oh, one of the things I didn't show was using a pipette. You know, you could try using a pipette in a fun way too. Ew, funky.
That's actually very fun, even though it's off the page.
I know, what did I sucked up something? Okay. You know, would that be a P? Actually, I love using these things because they're just so, look at all my different P's happening here.
What fluid are you using?
Sumi. Draw with it. I don't know, whatever. I just like to play. Okay. If you were in my studio right now, you could try all my tools. We could just play together. One of my favorite things to do. Anyway, those are just, you know, and then we could do drips, move it around, see how the drifts happen. I don't know. So that's another thing we can try too, is a pipette. 2 tools, you know, you might want to come back in later and maybe refine with a different tool, you know, maybe kind of pull this out here. Maybe you do something like this. I don't know. Oops, I don't have enough ink in here. Or maybe you refine some of your edges, you know, clean up some of the edges with the second tool. I have an alphabet book that I'll show you. You know, you might want to complete some of these marks here with a second tool, clean it up, and then go in later and add color maybe in some of these. This nib I'm using is one of my favorite nibs. It's a vintage nib.
Just put it in the chat.
Oh, okay. Did you? Sorry,
I did. No, that's okay.
Yeah, it's a vintage nib. It's called the Esterbrook 788 oval point, and I use it for touch up or writing. You know, like I just might do something like this.
And I also put in the chat that it's your favorite pointed nib.
It is my favorite pointed nib. It's not necessarily for like copper plate or anything like that. It's more for stuff that I like to do, like cleaning up, drawing with it, moving really fast with it.
Right, and you can push and pull with it.
yeah, I do moves like this sort of move with it, and it's my favorite.
It's
Doing
so
moves like that.
fast. Type that in there.
Yeah. So anyway, I like using this nib because it is really nice. Okay. But because I can do this kind of stuff with it too. But I use it for everything, cleaning up things, you know, a second tool just to refine, or moving fast when I have to do smaller lettering. All right, I heard an alarm. What was that? Oh, we have 10 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Okay. So, right.
Can we get a question in before you go on?
Yes. No, yeah, go ahead. There was something I was
Okay.
thinking. Go ahead.
On page 6 of the handouts.
Yes. Oh, that's okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Your letter O, the very top row, the far right O, that's 2 strokes with a dot.
This one.
How would you proceed to make that into other letters?
Oh, hang on a minute. I just realized I have a brightening tool on here. Huh. Didn't know I could brighten my light. Thank you.
By the way,
Okay.
that's really nice, that light.
Yeah, I hit this button. Like, I didn't know I had a brightening tool on here. So now, say that again.
So how would you go from that, which is 2 different lines and a dot, into an alphabet?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to really think about that.
Okay.
You know, like the most natural way to go from here.
You're off the camera.
Oh, I zoomed in quite a bit there. Okay. You know, doing something like that, you know, my natural letter, I could go into a C, you know, go right into my C. You know, basically what that is it's this, you know, it's something like that is what it would be if we closed it off.
So you did that. So you did that and the line broke.
No. That looks like it. It looks like that, but no.
I know it's not.
It's on two different. It's two different planes.
Yeah.
You know, this was that actually done in 2 different strokes.
Yeah.
But you know, could we go into what would we do with the G? You know, would it be like that?
Can you please?
Oh, I'm off the page. Sorry.
One thing.
You know, and then you could think about doing the G like this.
Could you please move left?
Oh.
Thank you.
You know, could it be something like that for the G? I don't know. That's something I would have to really think about. And there'd be, you know, certain letters are going to be easier than others to create an alphabet from, for sure. You know, when you're doing these, you may not have to think about the whole alphabet someday, but you may just use them for different, like, words or something, and only come up with 5 or 6 letters, you know. For example, when I did my, if you flip over to page 7, when I did this piece, I never created a full alphabet of this. This is now has a full alphabet. It's called the Inside Curve, but I did not have the full alphabet. I just created the words just to fit, you know. And there's a lot of these that I don't have a full alphabet of, like this one I don't. So you might just pick a letter and then just do something with it just to make a piece, not a complete alphabet. So none of these have to be made into full alphabets unless you're doing like an alphabet book and you wanted it to. But here's what I wanted to say about the 2 tools and different tools. If you look at page 8, this is part of my alphabet book, which I have this alphabet created. It has all the letters and they're all done in different styles. And then I have numbers, numbers and alphabet. So my rules were I did a different letter, a different style for each letter and different tools. So you're going to see where, like this, here was a broad edge tool that was touched up. You can tell it was touched up because the broad edge tool wouldn't make this mark here. And this, so I had to actually clean up those edges, highly retouched. And then this was done with a pointed pen. And this was done with a pointed pen. Automatic pen, broad edge, and then pointed pen to draw this in. And this is what I'm talking about tomorrow that we're going to try. 2 tools or 1 tool. Here's 1 broad edge tool and then cleaned up with a pointed pen. You know, I made this bolder mark with the automatic pen, but highly retouched. And when I say retouched, I mean using like the nib that I was using here, the Esterbrook, to clean it, or a really, really pointed nib that doesn't have that oval point on it. This was done with a compass, obviously, and drawn. This is done just with a Japanese brush or Chinese brush. So this is what I'm talking about, where we're going to get into two different tools. Here you can definitely see, well, traditional ruling pen, and then up on the point in order to get that. So this is all one tool. But this was done with two tools.
Do you have your traditional ruling pen next to you that you can just grab and show it on the camera?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This has a handle that was put on it by a friend of mine, but that's a traditional ruling pen, and writing with it up on the tip like this, all right? So that's a traditional ruling pen that we used to use in drafting, okay? All right,
Yeah.
so that's what I mean by two different tools and trying different things tomorrow and making different letters, all right? So I think, are we good? We got about 4
We
minutes.
have 4 minutes. There's no more questions in the chat unless anyone has any, because then I can unmute everyone if you are ready for schmooze.
I am. I don't think I have anything else right now. I think I've
Okay,
taken quite a bit today, so.
So everyone is welcome to unmute yourselves. If you have trouble, shoot me a chat and I can help you with that.
Yeah, and I'll keep this recording because there might be questions that come up right now. So I'll keep the recording going.
So then I'm going to shoot back to make your desktop the video for everybody in case there's a question.
Okay.
Okay, Janet has a question. How about the letter in the bottom left of page 8? Was it drawn with a ruler?
Bottom left of page 8. Yeah. So this was done obviously with a ruler, drawn with a ruler. And then the pointed pen where I just made that little squiggle, and then this down in here. And then added the color. So the original book is Sumi, black Sumi, and vermilion Sumi. In your handouts, it kind of looks a little bit more red, but this is actually vermilion in the original. The original is in the permanent collection at the Newberry Library in Chicago. It was done, the original is about 11, I want to say by 11 inches high by about 8.5 inches wide. It was a bound book that was already done by a friend of mine who's a bookbinder. And then I did the alphabet much, much later. I purchased the bound book from her and then did the alphabet. So each letter in the original is about, I want to say, almost 5 inches high. So what you see here is slightly much reduced. And then I have versions of it. I actually have a little 5x5 version of it that I sell.
I'm actually going to show, I have mine right in front of me.
Yeah, Karen has one. But in the version that I sell, they're small. The letters are small. They're in on a 5x5 sheet. And this is what my alphabet book was created from, my classroom, my alphabet book, which is going on right now. Anyway, yeah, so that's how I created that. Other questions about that?
No, we're caught up in the chat. I'm actually going to show that. There's this lovely linen bag.
Oh yeah, it comes with a little bag.
And then here, Wild Woman, you want to talk about?
You can see the sizes of the letters in that. So each page is 5 inches by 5 inches. So the letters themselves in this are about 3.5 inches high or so. And they're all done in different styles. Karen, your screen just froze. We lost Karen. I think she froze. Okay, that's all right. Can everyone hear me? Let me go back and see gallery view. Is everybody there? Can someone